Java Technographs. So in this video we are going to discuss about important feature that was introduced in Java 8, that is Lambda functions, which can also be termed as Lambda expressions. Right, so basically in this short video we will discuss on what are Lambda functions and what are the benefits of Lambda function, when to use it, and we try to drive into an example and then do the demo, a short demo. Yes. Right, so what are the Lambda functions? So Lambda functions are nothing but basically methods without a name, and they are not tied to any class. So they are nothing anonymous methods. Basically the syntax would be something like this, where we have parentheses and a pointer and then braces where you write your code to operate the data. So this is a simple syntax. So we can say that anonymous methods without a name, so it does not have a name over here. And basically if you want to pass any parameters, any data, you pass over here in the parentheses, and then you have the body over here where the statement blocks are used. So and it can also have a return statement. So what are the benefits? So benefits are that the code is very concise. So since it is, you're not writing a class, you don't have a method name, so the code is very simple and you are defining an anonymous code. So since the amount of code is very less, basically say for example you have a class and you have 10 methods, and if you want to access one method, probably you have to instantiate the object which have the footprint of the 10 methods, right? So instead of that, if you define an anonymous method, basically the memory footprint would be very small. So if you want to process some 100,000 records of data, which is iterative processing, so that would be highly efficient, because the processing would be faster using the Lambda functions. So and there are no memory leaks, because the scope of the variables are well defined. So when to use it? Basically, they are generally used when a function is needed temporarily for short period of time. So you don't persist and pass those methods across the packages, right? So when do you prefer loose coupling with the systems which require dynamic behavior? So let's go into an example. Basically, you have an application so which has events, number of events that are being registered into the system. So there can be a number of events which gets registered dynamically when the event occurs into the, so whatever the registered event, if it occurs in the application, basically the application will call the lambda function which is already registered, so and get and execute that lambda function, right? So the lambda function can be anything, so it depends on the business logic of your application, maybe sending a notification or calling a third party API or calling another event, something like that. So basically this is one of the high level view of the example. So let's jump into the code. So I have defined a lambda expression class. Okay, so inside it, basically I will define a function. This is a function where it takes an integer, so these are the arguments, like integer is the parameter that is being passed and string is the return type. So basically I'm not using the return because it's a single statement, right? So I don't have to do anything. So I just have to, this is one of the lambda function that I have defined, and if I want to invoke it, right, basically I just have to invoke and apply. So I can have, since the input parameter is an integer, I will pass anything, and then, so this is how we can execute it. So once it gets executed, probably since it has a return statement, let's capture the return value. So the return value, and try to print the return value. So let's see what is returned here. So it returns hello world 3, since I am passing 3. So this function can be passed to any other function. So if you have another method, say, okay, so and if it takes some parameter, something like this, right? So you can run this over here, like function learn apply again 23. So you can pass the function as a parameter, since we treat the lambda function as a value, right? So basically this is how we can use the lambda expressions, something function. Okay, so okay, so let's remove this, since we are it is a void that is getting returned, so we can execute like this. So since we are